I am the luckiest man on earth. I support my family doing my dream job that I've always wanted, and it's all because of this guy. Dear Brian, this one's for you. Success to some is all about money. To me, it's about freedom while you're living and legacy when you're not. And there's no man who personifies success in my eyes more than Brian Barczyk. Freedom means you have the ability to chase your dreams. Sometimes to chase your dreams, you need the courage and you need the inspiration. And that is what Brian provided for so many. I am free. But I didn't realize I could be until I found this man, Brian Barczyk. To understand how, let's back up to 2013, and I found a video called Top 10 Bad Snake Advice. At this time, I had 2 bearded dragons and my leopard gecko Cheech, which has been featured on this channel many times before. I just finished working for somebody else with no thought that it ever seemed possible to work for myself, even though I always wanted to. I've always wanted to make videos on YouTube. I started making videos with friends back in 2011.
Hi. I'm Adam.
I started a fitness channel after that, and after that a whiskey channel that went nowhere, and I just didn't get it. It seemed impossible, like it was only for special people who had special talents, who were superhuman to make it on YouTube. But then this guy, in his 30s, from Michigan, in a basement of a warehouse with a bunch of snakes, shows up, and it seems doable. It seems like all you need to do is be authentic, be yourself, and have the subject matter be something that you're truly passionate about. And I was captivated. This ponytailed man from the middle of Michigan talking facts about reptiles and making it engaging for everybody without a camera crew, without CGI or anything fancy, just a camera and a guy who really loved what he was talking about. And I couldn't stop watching him. I watched and watched and watched for years. And as I did, I got more interested in reptiles, I got more reptiles, and upped my game as a reptile keeper. And all of that was thanks to one guy. Fast forward almost 6 years to January 14th, 2019. That's the day that Wickens Wicked Reptiles started.
I'm Adam Wickens. I'll be your host.
I decided if my heroes can do it, I can do it too. Or at least I can try. And I'm going to give it 1 year of dedication based on the advice that Brian gave in a video. And whatever happens, happens. What I expected to happen was to engage with more people who might take notice and have conversations to make me a better keeper, to learn about new reptiles and maybe gain a few reptiles along the way. What I didn't expect to happen is what happened next, a few years later. You see, when I failed the first couple times, I assumed that this channel wouldn't be any different. Maybe just a little less failure because I'd give it a little bit longer. But to my surprise, the subscribers kept on coming, the comments started to grow, and the likes on the videos kept getting higher and higher. And after 1 year, I had 8,000 subscribers. I was watching Brian's vlog channel rather than the Snake Bites channel because he switched over, and I was following along still as a fan, looking up to Brian as if he was this mythical being that I would never get the opportunity to talk to. I kept making videos, one after another, and eventually started to get a little bit more traction. And one day, I saw a comment from Brian Barczyk. I thought maybe it was one of his team. It wasn't really him. He has no idea who I am. And eventually in November of 2020, I decided to give it a leap. I quit my day job and I became a full-time creator. I wasn't making a ton of money, but enough to get by, and I knew if I poured my heart and soul into this channel the way that Brian did with his, it could become something special. But eventually one morning, I woke up, I checked my phone, and I saw a blue check mark in my Instagram inbox. It was February 2022, 3 years after I started, and Brian invited me to come to the Reptarium for a day. So we set a date, I got in my truck.
It's 6 in the morning, and I'm going to a place that I've wanted to go to for the last 8 years.
And I drove the 4 hours to Detroit, Michigan, and waiting outside was Brian and Jay, who both greeted me with giant bear hugs. And I knew immediately, this guy is special. My expectation was to have a few minutes with Brian or maybe an hour, and then his staff would handle me for the rest of the day. What I didn't expect was to show up and have over 12 hours of his undivided attention, be handed a key to see any animal that I wanted, and have free roam of the place, and have him and his crew help me film my video.
And I'm rolling. Number 3.
And I told Brian about the most rewarding thing about my new career. Having the comments made to me that I used to leave to him. A mother talking about how she was afraid of snakes but got one for her son after she found my videos. Some teenager who started a social media account because I told him it was possible. All of these things that I watched Brian have commented, or even I left comments on his videos, now people were leaving for me. I was walking in his footsteps. And just like that, a hero to me became a friend. And on my long drive back to Canada, it was a realization, a nice 4-hour time to really think about what had happened. I used to sit at a desk every day doing something I didn't care about at all. I found some guy on the internet and tried to emulate what he did, and now I'm providing for my family by talking about reptiles on the internet. The exact thing I would have told you I wanted to do when I was 5 years old, talk about reptiles on television, I was doing, and I was successful at it. And I only thought I ever could be because Brian told me through the internet that it was possible. I defined success at the beginning of the video as freedom, and now I was free. I wasn't punching Excel spreadsheets with data that I didn't care about for somebody else. I was driving to Michigan to meet this hero of mine who by the time I was driving home became my friend and somebody who I could call on if I had questions or needed advice. No longer was I waking up to an alarm dreading that I had to go do something for somebody else and have them bark down my neck. I was in charge of my own destiny. And the only reason I even tried in the first place was because of this guy who invited me to show up and shoot a video for my channel, even though there was nothing in it for him. Me using his name would propel my channel. Him using mine did nothing for him. It was a very selfless act, and that's who Brian really was. And then less than a year later, the rug was ripped out from under us. Brian was diagnosed with a cancer that had a survival rate of about 10%. It was a terrible look, but Brian still, even though he understood the odds, a smart man who had all the doctor resources available to him, still kept fighting as if there was no chance he was going to lose, even with all the odds stacked against him. But 1 year ago today, I read the same post that all of you read, and I didn't know how to handle it. But what I thought was, what would Brian do in this situation? What if Brian had a mentor that he looked up to that was no longer there? He would continue to walk along and provide that message that he believes so strongly in to everybody else. And that is what I intend to do. Just because a person's body might be dead doesn't mean that their spirit is too. Brian's legacy is very young. He might be gone himself in the flesh, but his legacy never will be. I've told the story of what Brian means to me to so many people, including Cesar, my tattoo artist, and he immediately said, well, you know what we need to do. So I got in my truck, I went down to Cesar's place, and we got to work. For 8.5 straight hours, I told stories to Cesar about what Brian meant to me. Anecdotes, how I found him, the things that Brian and I used to talk about, and then eventually it was done. And now every time I look down, I'll be reminded of why it is that I get to do what I do. My privilege of being able to follow my passion, chase my dreams, and be successful at it, having that freedom, and hopefully one day legacy too. Brian's legacy will live on in our hearts forever, and even if he's not walking around in the flesh, he'll always own a piece of mine. I always say my success is all due to the viewer, and it's true, but I never would have put myself in front of the viewer if it wasn't for Brian putting himself in front of me. Every successful person, regardless of that definition that you choose to define success by, gets lucky. And perhaps the luckiest thing that I got to do was become friends with Brian Barczyk. So dear Brian, this industry wouldn't be around without you. You created something from nothing. Thank you. I miss you. I love you.